Okay, hello everybody. We are talking about how to determine the main idea of a text today. Now, in this lesson, we're primarily talking about nonfiction text. Now, nonfiction means it's true. Okay, fiction is something that's made up, like Cinderella, Percy Jackson, Harry Potter, those are all fiction. Nonfiction is true. It's teaching you something. There's truth behind it. So we're going to talk about how to determine the main idea of the text. Now, what is main idea? Main idea is a piece of writing. Oh, in a piece of writing, sorry, is the main points that the author is trying to have you remember. It is the main thing that is happening. Now, it is different than a topic, which we'll talk about in just a second, but it's kind of what is the author trying to tell you about a certain topic. Okay, it's what it's mainly about. That's why we call it the main idea. This little meme says central idea, which can also be called, but main idea helps you remember it's what it's mainly about. Now, summary writers may state it just point blank. They're just going to write it and tell you exactly what it is. But oftentimes it's implied, which means that you're going to have to figure it out and use your inferring skills and take what you know, your background knowledge, and what the text is saying to figure out the main idea. And we're going to practice that in just a second. But the main idea is not a topic or a phrase. It is always written in a complete sentence. Now, where do you find the main idea? Well, usually it's either at the beginning of a text, near the end of the text, or like we said, it's not implied, but you have to think, what is this really talking about? So here's an example. We're going to try and figure out the main idea of this passage. Summer is a wonderful time to spend at West Beach. It is a beach with light-colored soft sand. The coastline goes on for a long way, and many people enjoy walking along it. Children like to play in the surf and walk along the rocks that are visible at low tide. This is a fun beach for people of all ages. Okay, well, our topic is West Point Beach. That's what this whole thing is talking about, right? Every sentence is going back to talking about at West Beach. But to figure out the main idea, you need to ask yourself, well, what is the passage really saying about West Point Beach? And as you read through it again, well, it's talking about all the things you can do in summer at West Point Beach. So in this case, the main idea is this first sentence. Summer is a wonderful time to spend at West Beach. Now, another way to determine the main idea is every other sentence is going to relate back to that idea. So the next one, the beach is a light colored soft sand. Okay, well, that's going back to West Beach, right? The coastline goes on for a long way and many people enjoy walking along it. Children like to play in the surf and walk along the rocks that are visible at low tide. This is a fun beach for people of all ages. Well, that's what we're talking about in summer at the beach, right? We're talking about West Beach and the things you can do there. So that's the main idea. Let's look at this one. Most teenagers and young adults do not know what they want to do for the rest of their lives. It is a big decision. There are a number of things you can do to narrow the choices. For example, you can take an interest test, do some research on your own about a career, try volunteer work in the field in which you are interested, or job shadow, in which you spend a day with a person who is working in a field that interests you. These are just a few helpful ideas as you begin to choose a career. Okay, so you kind of think about it. Well, what is this talking about? Well, it's talking about how teenagers don't know what to do with their lives sometimes. It's a big decision. Maybe that's the main idea. But does every other sentence talk about that? Well, it says there are a number of things you can do to narrow the choices. For example, you can take an interest test, research, job shadow, volunteer. So it's listing all these things you can do to help you choose a career. So in this case, it probably would be this last sentence. There are just a few helpful ideas as you begin to choose a career. Okay, that would be your main idea. That's what the rest of the paragraph is talking about. It's mainly about helpful ways to help you choose a career. Now, what about this one? A penny for your thoughts? If it's a 1943 copper penny, it would be worth as much as $50,000. In 1943, most pennies were made out of steel since copper was needed for World War II. So the 1943 copper penny is ultra rare. Another rarity is the 1955 double die penny. These pennies were mistakenly double stamped, so they have overlapping dates and letters. If it's uncirculated, it'd easily fetch $25,000 at an auction. Now that's a pretty penny. Okay, so we need to determine what the main idea is. So first I'm going to ask myself, what's the topic? Okay, well, my topic is pennies, right? The whole thing is about pennies. Well, what am I saying about pennies? Well, I'm talking about a 1943 copper penny and how much it's worth. But then I also talk about a 1955 penny. So my main idea can't just be 1943 pennies because I'm also talking about 1955 pennies. But what am I really saying? Well, I'm also saying that that one's worth a lot of money. Okay, so that's going to be my main idea, right? My main idea is going to be there are some very rare pennies that are now worth a lot of money, right? That is the main idea that the author is trying to teach me about the topic, which was pennies. Okay, so let's try it one more time. I want you this time to really think before I give you the answer what the main idea would be. Before you put on that skeleton costume and rove door to door, pandering for candy, take a minute to reflect on this tradition. Halloween is believed to have come from an ancient Celtic festival dating back some 2,000 years. November 1st was the Celtic New Year and marks the end of summer to the Celts. They celebrated on its eve by wearing costumes made of animal skins and dancing around bonfires. Over the next 2 millennia, this primitive celebration grew to be the candy-fueled costume ball that we know today. Okay, well, like I said, the first step is always determine the topic. Well, the topic is talking about Halloween, but what is the author really saying about Halloween? So I want you to think, what would you say is the main idea? Now, if you're saying, what did the author tell you about Halloween? Well, every sentence is again talking about this Celtic festival. So that's probably going to be your main idea. Halloween is believed to come from an ancient Celtic festival. And you can see that all of these other sentences are telling you what happened in this Celtic festival to then relate back to how that went to Halloween. Now, all of those other sentences are called supporting details. Supporting details are the details or remaining sentences in a paragraph. All supporting details have to relate to the main idea. If they don't, then it's not your main idea. Okay? Think about support. They're supporting, lifting up that main idea. They're helping make your point. Okay, so like I said, the steps for finding main idea. What is the topic? Then what is the author saying about the topic? And then make sure all your supporting details support that.